The stars had never looked so threatening to Captain Jake Morrison as they did that Tuesday morning aboard the exploration vessel Aurora. He stood on the bridge drinking his third cup of coffee when the communication array started screaming warnings that made his blood run cold. After 25 years in space, Jake had never seen readings like these coming from deep space sensors. Lieutenant Danny Cooper ran the initial scans twice before believing what he saw. A massive alien ship had appeared at the edge of their solar system without any warning or detection by Earth's defense networks. The vessel was unlike anything in human databases, stretching nearly 2 miles long with organic curves that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. "Captain, they're sending us a message," Communications Officer Helen Davis said, with a voice that tried to stay steady but failed completely. It's in perfect English somehow. Jake nodded grimly and gestured for her to put it on the main screen. The face that appeared made every person on the bridge take an involuntary step backward. The alien creature looked like a cross between a dragon and a nightmare, with scales that shifted from deep green to black and eyes that burned like twin stars. When it spoke, its voice carried the weight of absolute authority. "I am Zethkar, Supreme Combat Champion of the Galactic Federation. Your species has finally achieved the technological capability to join our community of worlds. However, entrance requires proof of worthiness through ritual combat. You will provide your finest warrior to face me in single combat on the neutral world of Kepler 442b in exactly 30 standard days." The alien's massive head tilted slightly, as if studying insects under a microscope. "Victory means your species joins as equals with full rights and privileges. Defeat means eternal servitude to the Federation. These are the ancient laws that govern all civilized worlds. Choose your champion wisely, humans. I have defeated the greatest warriors from 47 different species across 3 centuries of combat." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Jake felt the weight of his entire species' future settling on his shoulders like a lead blanket. Around him, his crew stared at blank screens that had just delivered humanity's first contact with alien civilization and possibly its death sentence. "Sir, what do we do?" asked Navigator Lisa Grant quietly from her station near the back of the bridge. Jake barely noticed her at first because Lisa usually kept to herself in the astrophysics lab, studying star formations and gravitational anomalies. She was a small woman from Kansas with brown hair always pulled back in a simple ponytail and clothes that looked like they came from a discount store. "We contact Earth Command immediately," Jake replied, his mind racing through protocols that had never been tested in real situations. "They'll need to assemble our best military personnel and combat specialists. This Zethkar creature wants our finest warrior, so we'll give him exactly that." The next few hours passed in a blur of emergency transmissions to Earth. Military leaders argued about which Special Forces unit should provide humanity's champion. Politicians debated the legal implications of joining an interstellar government. Scientists scrambled to analyze the alien technology that had appeared without warning in their solar system. General Patricia Hayes from Earth Command took charge of the selection process through subspace communication. She reviewed files of elite soldiers, combat champions, and martial arts experts from every nation on Earth. Names like Colonel Steve Martinez and Master Sergeant Katie Rodriguez topped the list of candidates being considered, while the adults argued about military strategy and political consequences. Lisa Grant sat quietly at her station, running calculations on her personal computer. She studied the star charts of Kepler 442b and its solar system, analyzing gravitational fields and stellar mechanics that others ignored in their focus on combat preparations. The binary star system creates unusual electromagnetic conditions, Lisa murmured to herself, not realizing that Jake had approached her station during a break in the heated discussions with Earth Command. "What did you say, Dr. Grant?" Jake asked, using her formal title, even though she always insisted people call her Lisa. "The planet where this combat will take place," Lisa explained, highlighting her star charts on the screen. "It orbits twin suns in a very specific configuration that creates gravitational anomalies. Most people would just see it as background information, but the positioning suggests this location wasn't chosen randomly." Jake studied her data with growing interest. Unlike the military personnel who focused entirely on combat tactics, Lisa approached the problem like the scientist she was. Her analysis revealed details about their destination that could prove crucial. "Dr. Grant, I need to ask you something that might sound crazy," Jake said after reviewing her stellar mechanics calculations. "Do you think our champion needs to be purely focused on fighting, or could someone with different expertise find advantages that pure warriors might miss?" Lisa looked up from her computer with surprise. "I think whoever fights this alien should understand everything about the environment where the battle takes place. The gravitational fields, electromagnetic radiation, stellar positioning, atmospheric conditions, and probably a dozen other factors that could affect the outcome. Would you be willing to study all those factors and brief our champion before the combat?" Jake asked. Lisa hesitated for a moment, then spoke words that would change everything. "Captain Morrison, I think I should be the champion." The bridge fell silent again. Every person present stared at the quiet astrophysicist who had just volunteered to fight an alien warrior that had defeated champions from 47 worlds across 3 centuries. "Lisa, that's incredibly brave, but this creature has killed trained warriors who dedicated their entire lives to combat," Jake said gently. "You're brilliant, but you've never even held a weapon." "That's exactly why I might succeed where warriors failed," Lisa replied with growing confidence. "This alien expects to fight another warrior using strength and speed and traditional combat techniques. He's probably never faced someone who understands stellar mechanics and gravitational physics better than weapon handling." Jake studied her face carefully. Lisa Grant had always been one of his most reliable officers, solving complex navigation problems that stumped more experienced personnel. She approached every challenge with analytical thinking that found solutions others missed completely. "The decision isn't mine alone to make," Jake said finally. "Earth Command will need to approve any champion we send. But Lisa, if you're serious about this, I'll support your candidacy." Lisa nodded firmly. "I'm completely serious, Captain. Give me 30 days to prepare, and I'll show this Zethkar that humans don't always fight the way other species expect." Jake activated the communication system to contact General Hayes on Earth. As he prepared to recommend humanity's most unlikely champion, he realized that Lisa Grant might represent exactly the kind of unexpected approach that had allowed humans to survive and thrive throughout their species' history. The stars no longer looked quite so threatening as Jake watched Lisa begin her preparations to face the impossible. General Patricia Hayes stared at the holographic display showing Lisa Grant's personnel file for the 5th time in an hour. The decision to approve humanity's champion had kept her awake for 3 straight nights, and every military advisor on Earth thought she had lost her mind completely. "Ma'am, with all due respect, this is insane," Colonel Frank Miller said during their final strategy meeting. "We have trained killers who could give this alien a real fight, and you want to send a scientist who has never fired a weapon in combat." "The scientist who volunteered happens to understand physics better than anyone else in our space fleet," General Hayes replied firmly. "Sometimes the best weapon isn't the biggest gun, but the smartest person holding it." Aboard the Aurora, Lisa had already begun her preparation with an intensity that surprised everyone who knew her quiet nature. She divided each day into 3 parts: physical training with Commander Ryan Phillips, combat study sessions analyzing Federation battle records, and her own research into stellar mechanics around Kepler 442b. Commander Phillips pushed Lisa through exercises that would have broken most people within the first week. She ran obstacle courses until her legs felt like rubber, practiced hand-to-hand combat until her knuckles bled, and learned to handle basic weapons even though she planned never to use them traditionally. "Your body is adapting faster than I expected," Ryan told her after a particularly brutal training session. "Most recruits take months to build this kind of endurance, but you're developing it in weeks." "Fear is an excellent motivator," Lisa replied while catching her breath. "Plus, I have advantages that most recruits don't need to develop." "Like what?" Ryan asked curiously. "Patience and the ability to think clearly under extreme pressure," Lisa explained. "Most warriors rely on instinct and training, but I solve problems by analyzing all available data first." Lisa's real preparation happened during her research hours in the astrophysics lab. She studied every detail about Kepler 442b that human databases contained, from its unusual magnetic field to the binary star system that created gravitational anomalies throughout the planet's surface. Dr. Amy Torres, Lisa's research assistant, helped run complex calculations about their destination, world. Amy had volunteered to support Lisa's preparation even though most scientists on Earth considered the mission a suicide attempt. "The gravitational field fluctuations are incredible," Amy said while reviewing their latest analysis. "The twin suns create interference patterns that change hourly based on their orbital positions." "That's what I was hoping to find," Lisa replied with growing excitement. "These fluctuations aren't random background noise. They follow predictable mathematical patterns that could be manipulated under the right conditions." Meanwhile, aboard the massive Federation flagship Blood Star, Zethkar prepared for what he expected would be his easiest victory in decades. The alien champion reviewed footage of his greatest battles, each one ending with his opponent's complete destruction through superior strength and centuries of combat experience. His Lieutenant Vorthak expressed confusion about humanity's choice of champion. "Supreme Commander, our intelligence reports indicate this human female has never engaged in combat against any opponent, let alone a trained warrior." "It matters little," Zethkar replied with dismissive confidence. "Humans are a young species that apparently lacks understanding of proper military hierarchy. They send their weakest member hoping to appeal to my mercy, but the ancient laws of combat allow no such consideration." Zethkar's preparation involved reviewing techniques that had defeated champions from dozens of different worlds. His bio-enhanced muscles could crush steel. His reflexes operated faster than most species could even perceive movement, and his tactical knowledge encompassed 3 centuries of successful combat against every type of opponent imaginable. Back on the Aurora, Lisa's unconventional training methods drew criticism from some crew members who questioned whether humanity was throwing away its only chance at survival. However, others began to believe that her scientific approach might succeed where traditional combat would certainly fail. Chief Engineer Pete Williams became one of Lisa's strongest supporters after she asked him to modify standard equipment, for purposes that initially made no sense to anyone else. Pete worked with Lisa to create devices that most people assumed were scientific instruments rather than weapons. "These modifications don't look like anything that would help in a fight," Pete admitted while assembling Lisa's custom equipment. "They're not designed to fight in any way that Zethkar will recognize," Lisa explained cryptically. "Sometimes, the best strategy is to change the rules of the game entirely." Communications Officer Helen Davis intercepted Federation transmissions, revealing that representatives from dozens of alien species planned to attend the combat as spectators. Many hoped to witness Zethkar's first defeat in decades, though none believed humanity's strange choice of champion could actually accomplish such an impossible task. "They're calling it the most mismatched combat in Federation history," Helen reported during a crew briefing. "Some species are taking bets on how quickly you'll be defeated." "Let them underestimate humanity," Lisa replied calmly. "Underestimation has always been our secret advantage against larger and stronger opponents." As the Aurora approached Kepler 442b, During the final week of preparation, Lisa intensified her studies of the planet's unique characteristics. She discovered that the arena where combat took place sat precisely at the planet's magnetic pole, where the twin suns' gravitational effects created the most extreme environmental conditions possible. The arena's location isn't just ceremonial, Lisa explained to Captain Morrison during their final strategy session. It's positioned to take maximum advantage of stellar mechanics that most species don't fully understand. Do you understand them well enough to use that knowledge? Jake asked with obvious concern for her safety. I understand them better than whoever designed that arena realized was possible, Lisa replied with quiet confidence that surprised everyone present. Zethkar has spent 3 centuries defeating warriors who tried to match his strength and speed, but he's never faced someone who planned to fight using the stars themselves. Lisa made her final preparations as they entered orbit around Kepler 442b. She studied not just her opponent's combat records, but the planet's rotation, the binary star system's orbital mechanics, and the ancient arena's construction that would determine where humanity's fate would be decided. The time for preparation had ended, and Lisa Grant was as ready as any human could be to face an opponent who had never known defeat. The ancient arena on Kepler 442b stretched across a valley carved from black volcanic rock that gleamed like polished obsidian under the twin suns. Thousands of alien spectators filled floating observation platforms that circled the combat zone, their various species creating a rainbow of colors and shapes that Lisa had never imagined possible. Lisa stood at the arena's entrance wearing simple protective gear that looked almost primitive compared to the advanced armor most champions had, used in previous battles. Her equipment consisted of basic environmental protection, a few modified scientific instruments that Pete Williams had helped her create, and determination that burned brighter than either of the suns overhead. The crowd of alien spectators buzzed, with anticipation and barely concealed amusement at humanity's choice of champion. Tall, insectoid creatures clicked their mandibles in what Lisa assumed was laughter, while crystalline beings that looked like living gemstones chimed musical notes that somehow conveyed mockery across species barriers. Look at the tiny human female, one alien transmitted in the universal language that Federation translators converted to English in Lisa's earpiece. She carries no proper weapons and appears to have no combat enhancements whatsoever. Zethkar. We'll finish this before the first sun reaches its zenith, another spectator predicted confidently. Humans clearly do not understand the purpose of ritual combat. At the opposite entrance, Zethkar emerged from his preparation chamber like a living nightmare made flesh. The alien champion stood nearly 8 feet tall with muscles that rippled beneath scales harder than steel armor. His claws could slice through metal, his teeth could crush bone, and his eyes held the cold confidence of a predator who had never met an opponent capable of true resistance. The Federation's High Judge Morden floated above the arena center on an anti-gravity platform, his ancient form resembling a cross between an octopus and a tree that had achieved consciousness. When he spoke, his voice carried across the entire valley with authority that made even the rowdiest spectators fall silent immediately. We gathered today to witness ritual combat between Zethkar, Supreme Champion of the Federation, and the human. Representative Lisa Grant, Mordoon announced in tones that seemed to emerge from the planet itself. The ancient laws govern this contest. Combat continues until one fighter yields or dies. No outside interference is permitted once battle begins. Lisa listened carefully as Morden explained additional rules that would determine humanity's fate. The arena's energy field would prevent escape from the combat zone. Both fighters could use any equipment they brought with them. The battle could only end in victory, surrender, or death. Both suns must set completely before this combat can be declared a draw, Mordoon continued, though such an outcome has never occurred in 3,000 years of Federation history. Zethkar stepped into the arena with movements that combined lethal grace with overwhelming power. Every step he took left marks in the volcanic rock beneath his feet. His bio-enhanced physiology represented the pinnacle of warrior evolution across multiple species, refined through genetic modification and centuries of successful combat. Lisa entered from her side of the arena looking impossibly small and fragile compared to her opponent. The alien spectators grew louder in their predictions of humanity's immediate defeat. Some betting pools closed early because no one wanted to wager against such obvious odds. "Human," Zethkar spoke directly to Lisa for the first time, his voice carrying easily across the space between them. "You may surrender now with honor intact. I respect courage even when it borders on foolishness." "I appreciate the offer," Lisa replied calmly, "but I came here to represent my species, not to quit before we see what happens." Zethkar nodded with something that might have been approval. "Then you will die with the dignity of a true warrior, even if you lack the skills of one." High Judge Mordun raised one massive tentacle above his head. The arena fell completely silent except for the whisper of alien winds across volcanic stone. Lisa took a deep breath and focused her mind on calculations. She had rehearsed thousands of times during the journey to this world. "Let ritual combat begin," Mordun declared, and his tentacle fell like a starting flag. Zethkar immediately demonstrated why he had never lost a battle in 3 centuries of combat. His speed exceeded anything Lisa had trained for, covering the distance between them in seconds that felt like heartbeats. His first strike would have killed any normal human instantly. Lisa barely avoided death by throwing herself sideways and rolling behind a formation of volcanic rock that provided temporary shelter. Zethkar's claws struck the stone where she had been standing and left gouges several inches deep in material harder than concrete. The alien crowd erupted in excited chittering and musical tones that clearly expressed bloodthirsty anticipation. They expected humanity's champion to fall within the first few minutes, and Lisa's desperate evasion only delayed what seemed inevitable. Zethkar pursued his opponent with relentless efficiency, using his superior strength to smash through stone, barriers, and his enhanced reflexes to anticipate her movements. Lisa spent the next several minutes simply trying to stay alive, while her opponent demonstrated combat abilities that surpassed human limitations in every measurable category. "You cannot run forever, human," Zethkar called out, while destroying another rock formation that Lisa had used for cover. "Face me with honor, and your death will be swift." Lisa didn't reply because she needed all her concentration to study the arena itself rather than focus solely on her opponent. While dodging Zethkar's attacks, she observed how the twin suns' light created specific shadow patterns on the volcanic stone. She noticed how electromagnetic radiation from the binary star system interacted with the planet's unusual magnetic field. Most importantly, she confirmed that her calculations about this location had been absolutely correct. The arena sat precisely at the planet's magnetic pole, where gravitational forces from 2 suns created conditions that occurred nowhere else in the known galaxy. Zethkar grew increasingly frustrated as his supposedly easy victory stretched beyond the time frame he expected. Lisa's ability to evade his attacks impressed even him, though he attributed her survival to luck rather than skill or planning. The alien spectators began to notice something unusual happening. The small human female wasn't just running randomly from her opponent. Her movements followed specific patterns that seemed calculated rather than desperate. She was studying something about the arena itself, while staying barely ahead of certain death. Lisa checked the position of both suns overhead and smiled despite her desperate circumstances. Everything was proceeding exactly according to the plan she had developed during 30 days of intensive preparation. Lisa rolled behind another volcanic formation as Zethkar's claws slashed through the air where her head had been moments before. She had been evading his attacks for nearly an hour, and even her enhanced conditioning from Commander Phillips's training was beginning to fail her. But the twin suns overhead were moving into the exact positions she needed for her plan to work. "Enough games, human," Zethkar growled with growing frustration. Your cowardice dishonors both our species. Stand and fight like a true warrior, or I will make your death far more painful than necessary. Instead of responding to his taunts, Lisa pulled out one of the modified devices that Chief Engineer Pete Williams had helped her create. To most observers, it looked like a simple scientific instrument designed for measuring electromagnetic radiation. The alien spectators laughed at what appeared to be a desperate attempt to use laboratory equipment as a weapon. Zethkar paused, his attack for a moment genuinely puzzled by his opponent's behavior. What is that supposed to accomplish, human? Do you plan to bore me to death with scientific measurements? Lisa activated the device and began taking readings from specific points around the arena. I'm not measuring anything, she replied calmly, while continuing to move between positions. I'm calibrating the resonance frequency needed to trigger a stellar alignment that your Federation's architects never understood. The alien crowd fell silent at her words. Even species that had never heard of humans before recognized that Lisa was claiming knowledge of advanced physics that surpassed Federation science. High Judge Morden leaned forward on his floating platform, his ancient eyes focusing intently on the small human female. Stellar alignment, Morden repeated thoughtfully. Impossible. This arena has existed for millennia without any unusual astronomical events occurring during combat. That's because the alignment I'm talking about only happens once every 437 years, Lisa explained while adjusting her equipment settings. Today marks the first time since this arena's construction that both suns will reach the precise gravitational configuration needed to alter this planet's magnetic field. Zethkar's confusion turned to anger at what he perceived as desperate lies from a doomed opponent. You speak nonsense to delay the inevitable, human. No warrior has ever defeated me through tricks or deception. I'm not trying to defeat you. Through tricks, Lisa said as the twin suns continued their movement across the alien sky. I'm going to defeat you by using the stars themselves as my weapon. Lisa began moving between specific points around the arena that she had identified during her months of preparation. Each location corresponded to nodes in the planet's magnetic field, where gravitational forces from the binary star system created measurable distortions in space-time itself. The modified devices she placed at these positions weren't weapons in any traditional sense. Instead, they were sophisticated instruments designed to detect and amplify the natural resonance frequencies that occurred when twin suns reached perfect alignment with a planet's magnetic pole. Zethkar watched his opponent's strange behavior with growing unease. 3 centuries of combat experience had taught him to recognize when an enemy was implementing a real strategy rather than simply stalling for time. Lisa's movements were too precise and purposeful to be the actions of someone who had given up hope. Lieutenant Vorthak, Zethkar transmitted to his flagship through his communication implant. Analyze the human's equipment and behavior. Something about this situation feels wrong. Aboard the Blood Star, Vorthak ran emergency scans of the arena and Lisa's devices. What he discovered made his blood run cold with a fear he had never experienced before. Supreme Commander, the human is manipulating gravitational fields using principles our scientists don't fully understand. She's creating a cascade effect that could alter the fundamental physics of the combat zone. The alien spectators began to notice changes in their environment as Lisa's plan reached its critical phase. The twin suns overhead seemed brighter than before, and strange energy patterns danced across the arena's volcanic stone like aurora seen on worlds with magnetic atmospheres. This is impossible, one crystalline being chimed to its companions. No single individual can manipulate stellar mechanics on a planetary scale. The energy requirements alone would exceed most civilizations' total power generation. The human isn't generating energy, replied a more observant insectoid creature. She's redirecting forces that already exist in this binary star system. The arena's location makes it a natural focal point for gravitational manipulation if someone understands the mathematics involved. High Judge Mordun activated emergency communication systems to contact Federation scientists on nearby worlds. I need immediate analysis of current stellar mechanics around Kepler 442b. The human competitor claims to be triggering an astronomical event that could affect this combat. The response came back within minutes and confirmed Lisa's calculations with terrifying accuracy. High Judge, our astronomers confirm that both suns are approaching perfect alignment for the first time in over 4 centuries. If the human has found a way to amplify the gravitational effects of this alignment, she could theoretically alter local space-time in ways we've never seen before. Zethkar realized too late that his opponent had never intended to fight him using conventional combat techniques. While he had spent 3 centuries perfecting his skills as a warrior, Lisa had spent 30 days preparing to use the universe itself as her battlefield. "You planned this from the beginning," Zethkar said, with something approaching respect in his voice. "When you volunteered to be humanity's champion, you already knew this alignment would occur today. I've been tracking the orbital mechanics of this binary star system since I was a graduate student," Lisa replied while making final adjustments to her equipment. "When Captain Morrison told me about the combat location, I realized that fate had given humanity the perfect opportunity to win through knowledge instead of strength. The twin suns reached their alignment point exactly as Lisa had calculated. Gravitational forces that had been building for centuries suddenly focused through the arena like light through a magnifying glass. The volcanic stone beneath their feet began to resonate with harmonic frequencies that made the entire planet sing with barely contained energy. "Zethkar," Lisa said quietly, as cosmic forces beyond any warrior's ability to resist began to reshape the very nature of their battlefield. "I'm offering you something no opponent has probably ever given you before. You can surrender with honor rather than face forces that no amount of combat training can overcome." The supreme champion of the Federation faced the first opponent in 3 centuries who had found a way to make his legendary skills completely irrelevant to the outcome of their battle. The twin suns reached perfect alignment overhead, as gravitational forces that had been building for centuries finally reached their peak intensity. The arena's volcanic stone began to glow with energy that made the air itself shimmer like heat, waves rising from summer pavement. Lisa's modified devices hummed with power that seemed to draw directly from the stars themselves. Zethkar felt the change immediately as his enhanced physiology detected gravitational shifts that his warrior training had never prepared him to handle. The ground beneath his feet started to feel less solid, as if the planet's normal relationship with physics was becoming negotiable rather than absolute. "What have you done, human?" Zethkar demanded, as he struggled to maintain his balance against forces that seemed to pull him in multiple directions simultaneously. "I've demonstrated that true strength sometimes comes from understanding the universe instead of trying to dominate it," Lisa replied calmly, while monitoring the energy readings on her equipment. "Your Federation built this arena at the one location, on this planet where stellar mechanics could be manipulated by someone with sufficient knowledge of gravitational physics." The alien spectators watched in stunned amazement as the combat zone transformed into something none of them had ever witnessed before. Gravitational waves rippled across the arena floor like water disturbed by stones, creating patterns of distorted space-time that made normal movement impossible for anyone who relied purely on physical strength. Lisa moved easily through the gravitational distortions because she had calculated exactly where they would occur and how to navigate between them. Her 30 days of preparation had included memorizing safe paths through the shifting gravity fields that her stellar alignment would create. "This is beyond anything in Federation scientific databases," High Judge Mordun announced to the assembled spectators. "The human has achieved manipulation of stellar mechanics on a scale that our most advanced civilizations consider theoretical at best." Zethkar attempted to reach his opponent using the same speed and strength that had defeated champions from 47 different worlds, but the gravitational anomalies made his enhanced abilities work against him rather than providing advantages. His massive strength became a liability when gravity itself refused to behave predictably. "I cannot fight forces that exceed the physical laws I understand," Zethkar admitted, as he found himself pulled toward areas of intense gravitational distortion that Lisa had learned to avoid. "You have turned this arena into a battlefield where combat skills mean nothing compared to scientific knowledge." Lisa nodded with respect for an opponent who could acknowledge when he had been defeated by superior strategy rather than superior strength. "Zethkar, you've spent 3 centuries proving that you're the greatest warrior in the galaxy. Today I'm proving that humans solve problems by changing the rules of the game entirely." The stellar alignment reached its absolute peak as both suns hung directly overhead in perfect synchronization. The gravitational effects became so intense that reality itself seemed to bend around Lisa's position in the arena. She stood at the exact center of forces that could reshape matter at the atomic level. "I yield," Zethkar said clearly enough for every spectator to hear his words. "Lisa Grant of humanity, you have defeated me through mastery of knowledge I do not possess. The victory belongs to your species." The alien crowd erupted in sounds that ranged from shocked silence to excited chittering as they processed what had just occurred. For the first time in 3 centuries, the supreme champion of the Federation had surrendered in ritual combat. More importantly, he had been defeated by a strategy that none of them had thought possible. High Judge Morden floated down from his observation platform to examine Lisa's equipment more closely. "Dr. Grant, your manipulation of stellar mechanics represents scientific advancement that could revolutionize our understanding of gravitational physics. How did your species develop such sophisticated knowledge?" "We didn't develop it as a species," Lisa replied while carefully shutting down her devices as the stellar alignment began to fade. "I developed it as an individual who spent years studying binary star systems because I found them beautiful rather than useful. Sometimes the most practical applications come from the most impractical curiosity." The Federation representatives spent the next several hours debating humanity's status in their interstellar government. Some species argued that Lisa's victory had been achieved through scientific manipulation rather than honest combat. Others recognized that the ancient laws said nothing about how victory must be accomplished. The rules stated that combat continues until one fighter yields or dies, High Judge Morden declared after consulting with legal experts from dozens of worlds. Dr. Grant achieved victory through superior strategy and knowledge rather than deception or rule violation. Humanity has earned the right to join the Federation as equals. Zethkar approached Lisa as she packed her equipment for the journey back to the Aurora. "Human, I request permission to visit your world and study the educational systems that could produce someone with your capabilities." "You're welcome on Earth any time, Zethkar," Lisa replied with genuine warmth. "I think you'd find that our strength has always come from curiosity about things we don't understand rather than confidence in things we do understand." The journey back to Earth took several weeks, during which Lisa found herself famous throughout the galaxy as the human who had defeated the undefeatable champion through pure scientific knowledge. Representatives from dozens of alien species requested meetings to discuss human approaches to problem-solving and education. Captain Jake Morrison found Lisa in her laboratory aboard the Aurora, studying star charts that now included detailed information about hundreds of worlds throughout Federation space. "So what's next for humanity's unlikely champion?" he asked with obvious pride in her accomplishment. "I want to visit the research stations around that neutron star system in the Vega sector," Lisa replied while pointing to a cluster of stars on her display. "Federation scientists claim that certain gravitational effects are impossible there, but my calculations suggest they're just looking at the problem from the wrong perspective." Jake smiled as he realized that Lisa's victory had opened the galaxy Not just to human exploration, but to human curiosity and innovation. Any particular reason you want to prove them wrong? Lisa looked up from her star charts with the same quiet confidence that had allowed her to face an impossible opponent and find a way to win. Because the best way to make friends with new neighbors is to show them interesting things they've never seen before. The stars had never looked so welcoming as they did that day when humanity took its first steps into a larger universe where knowledge mattered more than strength and curiosity. Could change everything,